Classical Conversation Studios presents Refining Rhetoric with CEO Robert Bortins, a podcast where faith, business, politics, and classical education meet. Join us as we use the classical tools of rhetoric to seek truth in every arena of life.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Refining Rhetoric. Today we're going to be talking about current events, and Joe Biden just gave his latest State of the Union, and we're actually going to go back to last year's State of the Union. Politico just dropped an article on Thursday, March 7th, talking about a Joe Biden report card based on his statements from the 2023 State of the Union. And so we're going to look at that today, and I'm excited to talk about what they think and, do I agree or disagree? So let's jump in.
All right, I'll run it off from the top. So, looking at Politico right now, on inflation and economy, they gave Joe Biden an in progress. And then saying, while he's cautiously touting economic gains during last year's speech, from low employment to declining food inflation, the president's noted that there is more to do.
Yeah, so I agree that there's definitely more to do. And, all of the inflation wasn't necessarily from Joe Biden's policy, printing trillions of dollars at the end of the coronavirus didn't help, but they continued to pass bills to print additional trillions of dollars. And we're, I guess, going into $1 trillion more every 100 days. So basically every quarter, our debt's increasing more. So all of those things are going to drive inflation when the government's spending money. I don't think the economy is working for very many people. I would say that we have had progress over the last year, but I would disagree that we're anywhere where we need to be as a country. So I would have to probably rate this a little bit lower than Politico.
All right, moving on to infrastructure, and I'm going to give you a challenge to use one of the tools in your grade on this. So they gave him a grade of success as far as infrastructure is concerned. I want to know why you think he may or may not have met that mark.
Yeah, so I would agree that we do have a lot of infrastructure projects going on, and that's probably helping keep unemployment low, but it's also helping inflation to stay high. If you're trying to build a house or do a new project, you notice the price of wood and everything in Lowe's or Home Depot or Ace, wherever your favorite place is to go, is very high. So the circumstances around this, which is one of the 5 common topics of dialectic, is yes, the federal government is spending money. Ought to it be? And is it really going to give us a return on investment? I am very skeptical that what we're investing in our infrastructure is really best for the long-term success of America. So for just having projects going, an absolute success. Whether we're going to benefit from these in the long run, personally skeptical of that.
Okay. And then now on climate, they gave him an in progress. This one I find a little more interesting because it's going to be an in progress until all the cows are dead. So can you explain to me where they're moving with in regards to energy? Because I know that there's been more and more talk over the last few years about moving towards nuclear as they realize that all of these fancy EVs are just burning coal.
Yeah, so someone who has solar I think it's beneficial in certain circumstances. The idea that solar or wind or any of these technologies could work for us across the country is just not a good idea. We know wind, those big turbines can't be recycled. They're off more than they're on. When they are on, they're killing birds. During the previous
Catching on fire.
Yeah, or catching on fire. During the previous administration, we had some of the cleanest air and cleanest water that America has ever had. We aren't seeing the country particularly get cleaner. A lot of these things are actually, as we learn more about the science, making our country dirtier. And so really nuclear is probably the best way forward. I don't see a lot of action either on the state level or the federal level to make it easier or faster to get these plants up. I think that these EV credits are just benefiting, the rich, people who can afford, an $80,000, $90,000 car, those type of people. And it's not really going to move our country forward. I know our electric bill has pretty much doubled over the last couple years. And a lot of that's because of these infrastructure and these climate policies that have been put in place where they're investing in areas that don't have a good return, that make our infrastructure our electrical grid weaker instead of stronger, and we're seeing the consequences of that all over our country. I give it a big fat F.
Okay, so let's move on to affordability, from childcare to workers' rights. They gave Biden an in progress, and again, all of these, I'm curious what exactly they're grading in progress. Shouldn't all of these things be in progress until we ascend and join God? So I'm not sure where they're going with their grading system, but I'm curious what you have to say. Affordability from childcare to workers' rights. How has Biden done?
Yeah, so those are interesting because when you think about workers' rights, they talk about raising the minimum wage, which would obviously significantly increase the cost of childcare because typically childcare workers are not necessarily on the high end of the totem pole, so they would most likely benefit from this. One of the things that they wanted to pass was the PRO Act, which would basically unionize the entire United States, would make it incredibly expensive to live, to build, to buy things. And so that was not passed. So that seems to be, if his goal was to pass the PRO Act, that was a fail. I would say that's a great success for America as far as the cost of childcare and for workers' rights, because workers should have the right to have a one-to-one relationship with a business or individuals that they want to work with. And when the government says no, you can only have this specific type of relationship with your employer, that doesn't increase workers' rights. That reduces them. So by stopping some of the Biden administration's worst ideas, these things have probably actually improved over time. But based on his definition, I would think that this would have been measured as a fail.
All right, moving on to education costs and student debt. Uh, Now, okay, back to the tools. I want you to tell me which tool you're using on the outset. Um, I already know what you're going to say here, but I want to hear you say it. How is he doing on cost of student education and student debt?
Well, we can use the testimony of former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who said the president does not have the right or the legal authority to forgive student debt. And then, of course, we can look at the authority and look at the Supreme Court shooting that down. They are and have been using different schemes and sideways action to try to cancel specific types of student debt for students, billions of dollars, which of course is then transferred as a liability into our federal debt. So that's part of the reason why we're getting, $1 trillion of new debt every quarter is, 10-20% of that is the student debt that individuals who said, yeah, sign me up for that. And yes, I'll take a loan. And yes, I'll pay it back, no longer have the means to do so. So, a lot of these things are integrated. If we have high inflation, of course, the cost of building stuff is going to go up. We're going to see make it more affordable for families and continuing to go there. So that's kind of where we stand. Education costs continue to outpace inflation, and student debt continues to get worse as people who are educated in college, can't find work to pay off their debt.
All right, moving on to policing. They gave him a grade of needing improvement, which is surprising given his track record of working with the prison industry.
Yeah, Joe Biden has been all over the place as far as helping the prison industry expand as a senator with some of the laws and rules that he's passed. And then of course we've had just kind of policemen and our law enforcement really looked down upon from the Summer of Love, and we've got a whole Back the Blue movement. But we still see, the state of Texas, for example, just passed a law where if an illegal immigrant breaks the law, that they can be arrested. And the federal government is suing the state, trying to get them to stop it. We saw, Lake and Riley just got killed by an illegal immigrant who had prior arrests. And so it just seems that needs improvement is accurate, probably would need vast improvement in my opinion.
Moving on to gun violence, they gave him an in progress grade. I'm assuming that should stay in progress until either all gun bans are removed or until all the guns are banned.
Yeah, either direction. So it seems to be that we're getting more gun freedom, that we have more people own guns now in the United States than ever before, partly because the policing has gotten so bad because We've got these George Soros DAs, and they pretty much just let you go whenever you commit a crime. And kind of funny, Governor Newsom in California saw some theft going on in Target and complained to the manager, and the manager didn't know, or the girl, the checkout girl, and he said, "Why aren't you stopping that?" And he said, "Well, the governor doesn't let us stop it." Yeah, what? And then he just like went off on her. So they don't realize maybe what their policies are doing, but it's definitely getting bad.
All right. We kind of touched on this a minute ago. They gave him a grade of failure for immigration policy. Talk on
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a huge failure. We've got, just all sorts of sex trafficking and drugs coming in our southern border. We've got hundreds of thousands of, communist Chinese military age men coming in. And, you're not leaving communist China without the approval of the government. And that's partly of how the fentanyl is getting in. So it's absolutely failed. They had a bipartisan border deal. They said it would have made the problem much, much worse. It basically would have invited anyone who's ever been kicked out of the United States back in for a free citizenship. And thank God that was stopped. We do need immigration policy. We haven't had reform since the Reagan era. We absolutely do need a new immigration laws because the current ones are not benefiting America. They're not benefiting the people who want to come here. My grandparents on my dad's side immigrated here. My wife's grandparents on her mom's side immigrated here. So it is important. It is in our history, but we do need immigration policy that will actually work.
So the U.S. population is represented as part of the world population is about 4%. And the incentive structure I think that we're seeing is that the more people we can get into the country, illegally or not, eventually churn back into votes for the party that lets them in.
That's a theory that people have. Some people say, hey, they're not allowed to vote. You have to be a citizen to vote. But of course, we see like the state of California has a non-citizen voting representative now. There's been states in different cities that have tried to legalize non-citizens voting. Luckily, the courts have so far struck them down, but we don't know if that will continue into the future. And yeah, I mean, I don't think that the immigration groups are that monolithic as far as what they need. But what we do see is that every 10 years we have a census. And since blue states are primarily just bleeding out citizens or moving to red states or purple states, that the amount of power that the Democrat Party or Blue Party has in this country after the 2030 census is going to be greatly muted. I mean, you could see a 10% drop in the number of House representatives and their ability to elect presidents. So they need individuals in their states. And currently, I don't think our census process allows us to discriminate between citizens and non citizens. So if the red team gets in and wants to help stop this madness, then perhaps limiting the census to citizens only would help make it so that we don't have this really incentive for blue states to invite people into our country without going through the proper channels. So I don't know if that's a good policy. There's probably some negatives to that as well, but that's really where we stand today. And one of the things that they also don't talk about, which is really this idea that the United States gives money to the United Nations. The United Nations then gives money to these countries and to different nonprofits that then help bus and create these caravans and give them documentation and tell them how to talk to the border patrol and all of these things. So the United States is indirectly funding this southern invasion.
All right, moving on to LGBTQ plus rights.
Yeah, I always ask what does the P stand for, or the plus stand for, because there's another thing that starts with the letter P that I believe that they're going to be pushing very soon, and it's not pride. But yeah, I mean, obviously, they rate this as a success. There is the Equality Act that basically would, what they say, essentially transgender people live in safety and dignity. Of course, this is a very new phenomenon and something that is heartbreaking because it's just individuals who need help, and we've talked about that before. But what this basically did, this was if you have historical Christian Judeo values, if you have Muslim values, almost any sort of religious background, we believe that men and women are the only two that can get married. So you maybe want to protect these different rights, but this really weaponizes and potentially criminalizes the historical view on marriage. And because of that, we are part of this group called Christian Employers Alliance. And we actually sued, not Classical Conversations, but indirectly because we're members, that we should not have to cover gender transition. And so, because we're members of CEA, we won that lawsuit. Just found out just a few weeks ago, or about a week ago now. But on March 4th, this article that we've pulled up that we do not have to offer health insurance coverage to employees for gender transition treatment. And of course, that's a big win because that's obviously one, very expensive. And so, of course, your health premiums are going to go up because of this. It might become almost impossible for some businesses to offer this. And two, these surgeries are irreversible. And of course, we're hearing more and more from these individuals that they wish that they did not get these surgeries, that it was a mistake, that they wish they had had additional information before being carted back and basically becoming eunuchs. So, a big win for those of us who have sincere religious beliefs. I would say that a number of these individuals will regret being able to do these things to their body. So, I guess from their definition, yes, it was a success.
Moving on to social media, they gave him a grade of failure. I'd like to know why you think that is.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. This was really around the idea of social media not protecting children, really making money off of them, kids who are addicted to TikTok or YouTube or Instagram and just, doing these feeds all the time. And so there's not been any bipartisan or any bills at all to really protect children, make it, we can't buy cigarettes until you're a certain age, beer till you're a certain age. Some people argue that social media accounts shouldn't be available to children until to a certain age, and of course, you could argue, is that the government's responsibility or is that really the responsibility of parents? Either way, it's failed, and we continue to see it to fail. On the interesting side, there have been states that have basically banned pornography on the internet unless you can verify that the individual is of age to view pornography. Again, that's just what the rule is. I'm not saying that anyone of any age should do that, but that's what the rule. And those tend to get lambasted by the left. And obviously, part of the way that we can protect children is to protect them from these things. So it's kind of interesting that there has been some wins in some of these areas, but you would think that that could be universal and bipartisan, and it's not.
It seems to hit on that same argument that they hit on with any sort of social reform or policy, which is if you make something illegal, people will do illegal things.
Yes. Yes.
Moving on.
Well, we don't have any. Well, we have poor policing, so it doesn't matter, I guess, if you do illegal things or not. Just do whatever you want.
Moving on, Ukraine. They gave him an in progress.
Well, the war is still raging, and Ukraine hasn't lost as of this recording, although it seems that they might be kind of holding out. I do have a friend. We live near a military base. He's a military contractor, and he went to Ukraine to potentially sell them some military equipment, and found out that to sell them military equipment, you have to hire the general's brother at a 10% commission to, do the handshake deal for you. So right there, we know that at least 10% of the money we're sending to Ukraine is being taken. They say it's legal, but legally taken and distributed to the well-connected over there. And my understanding is they're all buying houses in Mediterranean islands as they prepare for leaving the country once the grift is over. So, obviously there's a lot of innocent people being hurt there, and we're praying for them. There's CC communities in Ukraine. There's a lot of people over there trying to help with this humanitarian crisis. But war can be between two bad guys, and I think that's kind of my general stance on that.
Moving on to healthcare. I don't see a grade on this one.
Yeah, they have a whole separate, I guess, rating for that. So you can check that out. Healthcare, abortion's right, restoring access to many people as possible after returning Roe v. Wade. He promised to end COVID, and he aimed to turn back a rise in fatal overdoses that have occurred during the pandemic. So overdoses still extremely high. COVID, I guess finally, like a week ago, they finally said that you can start treating it like the flu. Some of us have been treating it like the flu since April of 2020. But I guess they catch up eventually. And then Roe v. Wade continues to be a battle on each state right now, and a number of states have codified some sort of abortion rights in their states. And I think it's heartbreaking. I also think that pagans have been killing their children since the beginning of time. And so we shouldn't be surprised that they continue to want to kill their children today. And, Christians need to show them a different way, show them a better way. That's what we've done in the past. So ultimately, healthcare is a big fail. The more the government centralizes healthcare and the insurance agents take it over instead of a doctor to person relationship, the worse it gets. And that's what their plan is. So I'd give that one a big F.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah. So tell us what you think. Do you agree or disagree? And let us know your opinion on the State of the Union address that happens on, I think, Thursday, March 7th. So by the time this episode comes out, I'm told that they're going to have 2 intermissions. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I do not recall any other State of the Union having an intermission. So
just in time for the Doritos commercial, right?
Yeah, just in time for the Doritos commercial with their new influencer that they just hired. So Google that or don't. Maybe would be better. Don't Google that. They've already fired him or her or whatever. I don't know what it was originally.
Let's turn off before we start dead naming people.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to get banned on YouTube. So until next time, continue to use the tools of learning and share this episode with a friend and let us know how you think President Biden is doing. Hey everyone, I want to briefly interrupt this program to tell you about one of our newest Copper Lodge Library releases, Pride and Prejudice. It is a resource that our families read in the Challenge program. Our Classical Conversations multimedia company has produced this new Copper Lodge edition of this beloved, beautiful book that so many of us love and enjoy. Me not being one of those as a teenage male, not my favorite one that my mom required me to read, but as an adult, I definitely appreciate the story much more. And it's a beloved classic novel. And the wonderful thing about the Copper Lodge Library books is it has footnotes that include, definitions, pronunciations, historical context, and really just helps bring the story to life, as well as wide margins so that students can take notes and really have that conversation with the author. And I bet I would have enjoyed these books much more as a teenage male had I had these details provided for me in the books that I was reading. So students will be discussing Pride and Prejudice inside of our Classical Conversations communities. And of course, for those who might not be in CC, it's a wonderful book that you should include in every curriculum. So you can learn more about the Copper Lodge Library series at copperlodgelibrary.com and go to classicalconversationsbooks.com to purchase one today. Now back to the show.
Welcome to Classical Crypto. My name is Will McCreary. As always, we try to bring you the latest news in cryptocurrency, economic events, anything in the financial world. Just as soon as it comes, we're trying to get it to you. Just today, Bitcoin has broken $70,000 and sustained it for a few hours. Today is March 11th, 2024. We are very, very excited. I've been texting with Robert Bortins today. And oh my word, we've been waiting for this moment for a couple years. So very exciting to see what is happening with the supply and demand and this supply crunch coming in with all the big hedge funds buying Bitcoin for their ETF funds. It's no surprise that this is happening. Now, the big surprise is that it's happening before the halving, which is on April 20th. So big surprise there that it's coming early. But it's so exciting, and this has made a lot of people, it's made them intrigued. They're talking about Bitcoin again. What is this cyber money? So I've been hit up with phone calls, texts, and I thought it'd be a good time to celebrate the all-time highs that Bitcoin just broke, but also go back to some of those basics. What, as you are talking about Bitcoin, thinking about Bitcoin, I'm sure a lot of your family conversations a lot of conversations with friends will revolve around Bitcoin in the next 12 months because we are just getting started in this cycle. It is no news to me that this is happening. We were planning on it. Just the general public didn't, if they weren't paying attention, they didn't know it was coming. So it's coming. If you want to sound like a genius at the family dinner table when, you know, your kids or your wife or your husband or your best friend is, what's this Bitcoin thing? Like, are you involved in it? Is it part of your 401k? Do you have exposure? Here's what you want to say. You know, so what is Bitcoin? What is Bitcoin in general? So it's triple entry accounting. We don't really do that in our current Web 2 banking system. You've got a credit, debit, and then the bank says, hey, we're the authority on this transaction. This is what your bank account has. This is what it had yesterday. Here's what it had the day before that, right? So that's really double entry accounting. Now with Bitcoin, there's a finite limit of it, right? So that's the number one thing. Like there's a finite limit to Bitcoin. You can't print more. So that's a huge advantage, right? As to why people and investors are trusting it. The rules of the game don't change. You have a limited number of tokens of coins that have come out or are coming out, right? And that gives a lot of investors trust in the currency. So first of all, you can say that and that triple entry accounting. So for banking system, it's debit, credit, bank says it's okay, so I'm good. True triple entry accounting is Bitcoin, right? A public ledger. You can see my transactions. I can see yours. So don't let the government tell you that it's only used by criminals. They've been hiding behind that lie for a long time. Cash is 100% more easy to conceal than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is code, lives online, it's public, okay? Those transactions that happen on chain, right? Why is it called triple entry accounting? Well, you will have a debit, credit, and then the entirety of the internet, right? Every handheld device, every computer around the world is the accountability on that transaction going, yes, this happened. So it removes an entity, a government, a person, a body from that, right? Takes the human element out of it. And I think in this way, it's a good thing. And then the computer can say, hey, boom, this is a transaction. And the computer, because of the way it's built, the math equations that Bitcoin has solved, there's no more, no less than 21 million coins out there. So that's really exciting. So you can say, hey, triple entry accounting is part of the reason why Bitcoin is Bitcoin. Also, there's a finite and limited amount of Bitcoin, right? Those are two great answers to what is Bitcoin. And then, of course, the scarcity of the code is what gives Bitcoin value, and the fact that everyone's believing in it and that it can transact, and the fact that it's cross-border. So anyways, just wanted to throw that out there in case some of that is helpful to you. A couple other notable things in the news. Fidelity is recommending to their folks and their holders, the companies that are buying funds from them for 401ks, etc., they are allocating, and they're recommending an allocation of 5% of Bitcoin ETFs be allocated to Fidelity 401ks. That is a large number. And wow, I hope that goes through. That would start giving a lot of people more exposure to Bitcoin. And that would, I believe, very much benefit them and their 401ks really before this digital age and this digital run-up happens. Because I believe there's a transfer of wealth right now. Going from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0, a lot of these dollars are going to start transitioning into cryptos and come online. Because the dollar, a lot of people don't realize that the dollar really isn't online right now. A lot of things are online, but the dollar for sure is not. And then Larry Fink, another notable thing, Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock. Everyone's got their eye on BlackRock because BlackRock is buying millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin a day. And he was on, I think it was CBS a couple days ago. And the news reporter was going, so, what is Bitcoin, or why do people buy it? What do people see in Bitcoin? And he was pretty frank. He just said, when folks start fearing their own government, that is when they turn to these decentralized assets. So he was just admitting it. He's like, hey, when governments are messing up when they're printing money when people don't feel safe. They don't know where to put their money because their money's disintegrating in front of them through inflation. He's like, hey, they look for assets that are decentralized and safe. And he's saying, hey, Bitcoin is one of those assets. It is literally digital gold, to use his own words. So it's interesting that he just laid that out in the open. And then the news anchor was trying to pull him into, does that mean Americans don't trust their government? He didn't comment on that. But I think he did relay a truthful answer of going, hey, folks see this as an asset that the government, they can manipulate the price, but they cannot manipulate the supply. And they've tried to control it, they cannot. So interesting that came out. I tried to feed you all nuggets as I'm shown them and keep you clued into where a lot of the big market makers, where are they playing? Where are they going? What are they doing? BlackRock is buying land, they're buying physical gold, and they're buying Bitcoin. So take note, not financial advice. Thank you so much for listening today. Hope you got something out of it, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Refining Rhetoric with Robert Bortins. Want more? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media to continue the conversation, and visit classicalconversations.com/rhetoric to find out how you can join a local homeschool community.